and it is a Friday, so that is always a huge thing.
We love Fridays.
How are you?
I'm great. Got orange on because fall officially started yesterday. Starbucks brought back their pumpkin spice latte, which I'm more of a pumpkin cream cold brew fan. But I'm ready for
Oh,
fall now.
I'm drinking some black, Sam's Club coffee, just donut shop, pinky out.
This is just black iced coffee, and then I put a little bit of cold foam on the top. So hopefully it gets me through my morning.
I'm also drinking out of my cool S&S cup.
Great. Glad to see it.
Yeah.
So today is going to be a little bit different. We kind of decided that we're going to start maybe a story session. I don't know what I would do, just kind of different things that they aren't our usual, I guess, bulletin board posts. It's just kind of different things of interest that, you guys can engage with and just some, I guess, little things. So one thing we had talked about, and we've been talking about it all week, Donner's Pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Donner Pass is, uh, Northern California. It's a huge link, for the movement of everything. And it's not like a straightforward road, right? It's super challenging in the winter months. Everyone knows that this is. It's kind of the test for a lot of truck drivers, right? I mean, you hear a lot
You're
of
gonna hear the horror stories, and it's just like road
right.
Donners, and it seems like everyone's a little bit nervous about it. And after reading more about it, I'd be nervous. I think Brittany Wood yesterday said she saw a truck blow off of the bridge at one point. I think at its highest point, it's a little over 7,000 feet of elevation, which is completely
Yeah.
nuts. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like if you're not riding your brakes on the way down, people said it's a little could be disastrous. I'm sure there's a bunch of runaway truck ramps.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, really, the goal is not to even ride your brakes. I mean, you want to be 2 gears down, and riding that back pressure from your engine. You start riding those brakes on that thing, they're going to catch on fire. So looks like we got a few with us already. Alan Gallatin, good morning. Jamie Johnson, good morning. She's in Tuscola, Illinois. Alan Gallatin's in
It's
Janesville at our
been still
terminal
out of
up there.
depth.
And Neil
We
Chandler,
lost
good morning,
Dawn.
buddy.
It's
He said
fine.
he's
So
heading
it's a
that
good
way
thing I'm the
now.
one telling most of the
Hopefully,
story. Out of depth,
hopefully
so
he
it
means
looks like we are
Anniston and not
looking
Donner
into
Pass in
getting
the
a depth
wintertime.
supplier there like we have in Anniston so that we don't run into that issue. Good morning, Jamie from Tuscola, Illinois. And Neil said he's headed towards Donner's Pass. Um, Whenever Don gets back on, he's probably going to miss some of the story. But one thing that I wanted to bring up is a lot of people don't know the history of it. They just know Donner's Pass. You might have heard about cannibalism, whatever. So I decided to look into it a little bit. I'm a little bit of a history buff there, but I found a bunch of different. Actually, I watched a couple documentaries on it, and it's actually a pretty unique story. So I'm going to give you a little bit of synopsis. There's a ton of information, but I'm going to give you the really condensed version on why it's called Donner's. Hey, Don, nice to see you again.
It happens a lot. We pay like $1,000 a month for internet, and this is the best we can get.
Ask Shelly what she has to say about how hard your internet works. She told me something funny, but I'll let you call her. But I was just going to kind of get into the history of it, and we can kind of circle back to the driving. So if we do lose you, we lose you. It's fine. So I'm going to take you back almost 200 years ago to 1846. So the West was just starting to boom. This was a little bit before the gold rush of 49. But California was the place to be. It was like the new place that everyone wanted to be because it was prosperous and there was all these promises of a whole new um, kind of land. So
And Robert was
Ro-
there as a young man.
Robert might have been there, but we'll see. So the Donner Party, why they're called it, was there's two families who were going to go on this expedition out west. So the Donner families consisted of two parties. It was the Donners and the Reeds, and they were both kind of prominent families. They were big farmers for back then, so I don't know if that's an acre or what that is. But between the two families, it was extended family, like aunts, uncles, cousins. There was 31 of them. and their hired help. So they left Springfield, Illinois, and they were going to meet up with the last wagon train of the season that was headed west. And in total, that group became about 81 people. And most of those people were younger than 18 years old. Um, and the thing with going out west is you kind of had to plan when you were going to go out there. If you left too early, it was going to be, a crappy first part of your trip. It's like, did you want to have a worse part at the beginning or the end of your trip? So you kind of had to plan it perfectly. And this was before the Transcontinental Railroad. You were literally breaking trail, except for the Oregon Trail and the California Trail. So um, during this time, sorry, I have a couple notes here, but during this time, there's two ways to get out west. You could go by boat, which was obviously longer because you'd have to go to the bottom, excuse me, the bottom of the southern tip of South America and back up. So land was a little bit better option, but there weren't any roads yet. So most people took the Oregon Trail, which, did you ever play that video game or computer?
Yeah, and I would always get dysentery and
I
die.
remember we were one of the last grades that got floppy disks. So I remember, flipping my floppy disk, putting it in, and going on the old computers. So after reading this, I'm like, this literally sounds like Oregon Trail. So the Oregon Trail, it was the safest route and well traveled. So the trek took about 6 months, and that still was the question: when do you leave? Winter, or summer? If you left in the winter, it's obviously going to be cold at the start of your trip, but warm up near the end. And if you left in the summer, you really wanted to hope that everything went well because otherwise you were going to be stranded and cold.
And
So the
get
Donner
dysentery.
and get dysentery. So the Donner Party left in the middle of May, and the best time to leave was April, but they left in May because they had new wagons. That was the one thing that they pointed out was the Reed family. They were very rich, so they had these stagecoach like wagons. It wasn't like the Conestogas that everyone had. They had stagecoach doors. It was going to be great. So in April they left Springfield, Illinois, and then in mid-May is when they joined the wagon train in Missouri. So with a bunch of other families that brought their total to everyone to 87. So the reason they're called the Donner Party is because they chose Donner as their leader. The first 6 weeks of the trip, really great. They traveled 650 miles in 6 weeks, which I think that's usually what a lot of our guys and girls are doing a day here, to what's now Wyoming. So no matter
That's impressive, though, if you think about that, right? The amount of people moving that many people,
on a
a
dirt road,
hundred something
basically.
miles a day. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's unbelievable.
So I shouldn't be judging. They did a great job. And they had to stop they had livestock, which you can't run them like you do any vehicle. Um,
Right,
but yeah,
right.
but no matter which route you take, everyone, um, they could decide. So when the route started going west, everyone kind of took the same one. But once you got to Wyoming, you could either go on the California Trail or the Oregon Trail. But there was this new guy named Stanford Hastings, and he was promising a trail that would cut off a few hundred miles. Um, which they're like, heck yeah, let's do it. The only problem with this was that Mr. Hastings had never tested the entire trail. He'd gotten like partially the way down, and then he kind of turned around, but he thought it was a good start. And the other issue was that he'd never done it with wagons. So, it's going to be great. Um, so it was July when the Donner Party got to Wyoming. And then they decided, yep, we're going to take the shortcut way. So it was going to cut off 300 miles. What you think about that? That's a good chunk when you're already kind of pressed for time. Um, so before they went on the Hastings Trail, Hastings told them that he'd meet them at Fort Bridger, which was the first stop and the last chance to get supplies. So when they got to Fort Bridger, they were ready to meet Hastings, take his trail. They got news that he'd left the week before. So, but don't worry, he left some markings on the trees, so it's gonna be fine, right? It's all gonna be fine.
Yeah, old school
Um,
GPS.
yeah, turn left. But their journey really began. So the first part, pretty smooth sailing. Their journey really began on July 31st as they headed west. After a few days on the new route, the group realized it wasn't ideal. But did they turn around? No. They made it to the Wasatch Mountains, And then they followed directions that had been carved into the trees, like I was saying. The route was slow, and the party traveled about 2 miles a day because, one, they had to truly trailblaze, and the Reed's fancy wagons were holding people up. Instead of this great shortcut taking time, it added nearly a month to their trip, which I can only imagine how frustrating. You know, you've had a pretty smooth sailing so far. Now you're literally cutting down trees to get this shortcut. It was at that time that the party had their first casualty. There's a 25-year-old who got tuberculosis, which is that one of the things you can die from on Oregon Trail?
Oh yeah, yeah. TB's in there.
Okay, that's what I thought. There's just so many. Um, but it took the party 18 days to travel 30 miles. But in late August, they were finally out of the mountains, so all smooth sailing. Their next trial, though, they got to the Great Salt Lake Desert, which obviously isn't a great place to be if you have animals that need food and water because it's a desert. Uh,
Yeah.
but one thing they did run into is when they did find wet ground, their wagons would sink. So I don't know if the four-wheel drive wasn't working on them or what. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but that was a lot harder to get out of there. So after they finally made it across the desert, the party was officially done with the Hastings cutoff, which was a complete bust, and it was the end of September. So, as you know, it's getting a little bit cooler. They still only had one person who had died at that point, but they had lost dozens of animals and broken many wagons. So they started to kind of carpool a little bit. The end of September, they were a month behind schedule, and they had to make it across the Sierra Nevadas. Tensions were getting a little high at this point, and 4 more people died. One guy, he was stabbed, one was shot, and then they left behind one old guy. One of the guys who did do the stabbing, though, he was the Reed. So at the beginning, when the Reeds and the Donners got together, it was the Reed family. So they said, you know, as your punishment, you have to stay here. And he said, that's fine, but just make sure my family gets out west. So after they got to the base of the Sierra Nevadas, there was kind of a glimmer of hope. One of the riders went ahead and reached Sutter's Fort, and when he did, he rode back and he brought back several pack mules and more supplies. So it was like, okay, we're replenishing our supplies, all is well. And he did find 2, I think they were Native Americans, but they were going to help guide them through. So this was a boost of hope for everyone, and they thought they could maybe make one last push across the mountain and beat the snow. Snowfall wasn't expected until mid-November, but as we know, weather isn't always predictable. When the group got to Truckee Pass, they came to they found that the trail was completely snowed in. They had no choice but to winter in the mountains. And remember, they only had so many supplies because they were just going to truck right on through. And Truckee Pass now is Donner's Pass. It was renamed after all this, so it was Truckee Lake, and now it's Donner Lake. But when they made their home in little rundown cabins from people who had been there before. And in December, their food supply had been exhausted, and many had died due to malnutrition. Some survived by eating the dead livestock or catching the occasional rodent. They did at one point kill a bear, but that did not last long. Something needed to be done for everyone, or everyone was going to starve to death before spring came along. This is just where it gets a little more gruesome, so if you're not into it, hop off. I mean, nobody's into it.
Oh, we're into
it. This is where it gets interesting. So this is when Forlorn Hope was kind of created. So this was a group of 17 of the most able-bodied people in the camps, both men and women. There were a few children in there. They decided to snowshoe out of the mountain. So they made snowshoes out of the ox bones from the ox who had died, and they were going to make it out. So it sounded like a really good idea, but no one in the party had the strength to do it, the experience, or the supplies. They got lost right off the bat, and after 2 days, a man in the group said they would have to eat someone or they would die. So that's a little precursor there. But the big question was who. They talked about drawing sticks to see who they were going to kill and eat, but then they figured one of them would like drop dead due to natural causes soon enough. And that's exactly what happened. 2 days later, one of the men in the group did die, but they're forced to leave their bodies due to a blizzard. After that, two more died, and the survivors held off as long as they could for about 5 days. And then, with no food, they decided that they were going to have to eat some of their fellow comrades. Um,
Yeah, it's like that movie K2.
Never seen it.
What?
No, never seen it.
Really?
But I was,
They ate the butts of their of their party.
oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I
That
was
is
just
true.
thinking about it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but thinking about being that desperate, whether you're literally stuck in the woods, it's winter, you're freezing, you have no idea what you're going to do. So I was just thinking how desperate you'd have to be, you know? Um,
I
so
mean, we could be 2 days out, and I would start eating people. If I'm hungry, I'm hungry.
get a little hangry there. But two of the people
Yeah.
that they did bring with were those guys that they had picked up at Sutter's Fort, and they wouldn't eat anyone else. They're like, no, we're not doing it. So they quickly kind of became targets from everyone else. And one of the men in the group, he knew that they were targets and he told them to run. So they ran, and because they had no food, they ended up dying. So it was kind of a lose lose situation. But the group, so originally it started as 17 that were snowshoeing. It was down to seven near the end. There's two men and five women. And basically, the only thing that saved them was cannibalism. Um, on January 19th, the remaining members of the snowshoers did reach civilization. And at this time, um, they got there and they wanted rescue parties to come help everyone else. But during this time, the Mexican American War of 1846 had started, so there wasn't a lot of extra troops to go be rescue parties. But James Reed, he was the one that we talked about, that he was one of the first people in the Donner Party, and that he shot someone and was kind of shunned. He made his way out too. So they kind of ran into them there. Um, but after things calmed down a little bit, they're finally able to spare a few rescuers. It was still winter, so rescuers weren't able to use wagons, and they had to hike back to the Donner Party with supplies, everything. They wouldn't be able to do it all at once. They'd have to do it in stages. So, on February 18th, rescuers reached the camp where 12 were dead, and everyone else seemed to be in a state of shock. They said they're basically delirious. 23 were rescued, and the other were given food while they waited to be rescued. Some died while waiting to get out, and others died while en route off the mountain. It wasn't until April that the three other relief teams were able to get to the rest of the survivors. So in total, there was 89 who started the journey, and 48 lived, which is still a good ratio when
Wow.
you think about it. But yeah, they lost a lot. So that's why it's called the
Wow.
Donner's Pass, because they got stuck in that pass.
Yeah. Well, I never knew any of that. I mean, that's pretty cool to kind of hear the history of it. Driving over it, it's beautiful in the wintertime, or beautiful in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's beautiful too. But the problem we run into all the time is things change so quickly up there. Like you're in the mountains, 7,000 feet
The
up.
Donners found out that it
There's a ton
changed
of
quickly.
snow. Yeah, yeah, right, right. And I mean, but that's still the problem, right? I mean, so right now we've got DOT. They're putting updates on all the time. They shut that road down all the time. You're up there, you have to chain up most of the time. A lot of people get stuck up there for days at a time because of the snow. So, it is something that we have to navigate as truckers. And I'm sure a lot of folks, you know, in our chat here have stories about it. I was actually looking forward to driving down, uh, from Oregon when I came and doing that with the motorhome and all
The
that stuff.
motorhome.
Unfortunately, I didn't because I would have ended up like, the bad side of the Donner Party. But well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to kind of hear, some of the history on that. And there's a lot of comments now about that here.
You can
Let's see
catch us
here.
up.
Yeah, let's see. We've got. All right. You know what? I'm not going to get with this roll tide stuff, so we'll skip through that
I
right
can't see
now.
any comments. So
Um, James Haynes. Said, good morning. It's nice here in Grand Forks, but hot. And some of the nice weather back to Bama. Well, it's beautiful right now in Bama. I'm okay with the weather we have, and they can keep that weather up in Grand Forks. Jamie Johnson said it snowed every month in Wyoming before and on July 4th when she lived in Evanston. James Haynes making pukey faces. That must have been when we were talking about, oh, yeah,
Eating
the
people.
next comment was they eat butts? What the heck? So yeah, I mean that was K2. Watch that. But that's the thing, right? I mean, in survival modes, that's happened quite a bit where people have to eat people. I mean, that is pretty. Hopefully, that doesn't happen in our little fleet here.
I think I just
Jamie
recently
Johnson said.
lied.
Jamie Johnson says that she votes that you do more history stories. She loves them, whether it's gross or not. Tawan Clark, what's up, man? Good morning. Jamie Johnson again said it reminds her of a plane crash in Canada where they ate people to survive. I mean, again, it happens. That's the thing. James Haynes said, "Holy cow!" And then he also said they do very quickly. I think he was talking about when we were talking about the road conditions chaining. Jamie Johnson, the only time I will chain is to get to a safe haven, and that's it. And that's the thing with that Donner's Pass deal. You're going up there in the wintertime. The safe haven is just when you're past it. I mean, right? It's so high up there. The weather conditions at the bottom are not going to be the same. It could be beautiful at the bottom, and up top it could just be a nightmare. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Neil Chandler though does say that was awesome. So
Well,
I
7,000
also
feet.
vote that we do.
I did find this little article when I was looking for more information on driving stuff, and I was looking at different stories, but it said truckers respect Donner's Pass. It's not just another route, it's an intense exercise in patience, skill, and mechanical prowess. The path, especially along the popular Interstate 80, features a steep and testing terrain, which places it high on the list of routes that skilled truckers use as a benchmark for their capabilities. Embarking on the journey from the western approach, you're confronted with a steady uphill grade that intensifies as you delve deeper into the pass. The highway's most severe incline can reach an average of 6%, with some shorter stretches even approaching 7%. Your truck's engine is put to the test here. It needs to have the optimal horsepower and torque to maintain an acceptable speed up this grueling gradient. Descending Donner's Pass is a task that demands careful handling. As the altitude decreases, the descent reaches steep grades of around 6%, which extends for approximately 3 miles. It's essential to harness your engine brakes, or Jake brakes, to prevent excessive wear on your primary braking system, and most importantly, prevent your brakes from overheating. Remember the golden rule of mountain driving: always descend in the same gear as you ascended, or even a lower one, which we talked about kind of in the beginning.
Well, I also have an experience that AI generated for me.
Yeah,
So
okay.
AI
Before you
says,
do that, I just want to say that I was all over the internet on sources, and then this guy's like, I'm just going to type it into AI and see what AI generates. So here's his
yeah,
non-researched story.
yeah. So here we go. Donner Pass is a crucial transportation route connecting Northern California with the rest of the country. It also provides a vital link for the movement of goods and supplies. However, it's not your typical straightforward road. It's known for its challenging conditions, especially during winter months. And then you're supposed to say, "Oh, tell us a bit more about these challenging conditions." Now, here's a
Tell us a bit
story.
more about these challenging conditions.
Oh, yes, and this actually happened to. It didn't happen to me, but AI is telling me to lie about it. So, uh, it says that let's see, preparation is key when it comes to trucking through Donner Pass. Trucks equip their vehicles with snow chains or specially designed snow tires to gain traction. And then one time, I was driving through Donner Pass through a major snowstorm, and visibility was non-existent. The road conditions were deteriorating by the minute, and I decided to pull over until the worst of the storm passed. It was challenging because as a trucker, time is money and delays can be costly. However, safety is the utmost priority. So had that have actually happened to me, I would have actually said the same thing, right? So AI does have it right, but that did not happen to me. When I drove down Donner Pass or through Donner Pass, it was in the middle of the summertime and it was beautiful.
Clear blue skies, bluebird day.
Anticlimactic, but it is beautiful country up there.
No, I always think about I've
So
driven. That's kind of on my list. I have family who lives in kind of all parts of California, so we've thought of maybe road tripping out there, but I'll give Eden a little bit to get a little older because baby road trips aren't as fun.
yeah, you know what? When I did that deal too with that RV, I really had put a lot of thought into it because it was going to kind of route me up um, over the Cascades, and then I want to say through Boise and kind of down. And it doesn't matter. You're coming from the Pacific Northwest. You're going to run into something, right? I mean, there's going to
A little
be some
elevation.
crazy mountains up there. Yeah, yeah, right. So I was trying to pick the path of least resistance, and I was actually going to drive down the state of California and then come over. Um, 20 to 10, I think, eventually, and come that way. But I didn't. Everyone knows the story there, so I'll just cry.
What could have been? What should have been? No, we'll definitely try to
Mm-hmm.
find some
Yeah,
more stories like these. Probably not cannibalism ones, but just different things that do relate to um, trucking. There's so many things I think that stem from them. Like that technically wasn't a trucking story, but just different places um, that people go through, or I mean, really, the world is your oyster. I hate that saying, but that's exactly what it is with this. You can kind of connect everything back.
well, and just winter driving in general. I mean, that's something we can touch on too, and that's something that I do without
Ice road
AI. I actually have a
truckers.
ton of experience with. Yeah, well, here's the deal. I mean, for many years, a lot of people know, some don't. Many, many years, I went from Grand Forks to Winnipeg multiple times a day, and you see what it's like up there, right? So it gets kind of dicey. So I've had my fair share of winter driving, and I think a lot of folks get really nervous about it, especially this time of year because yeah, it's beautiful now, right? But the winter is looming. Everyone's thinking about November and December or even October, I guess, in some cases where you guys start to get snow up there. So
Don't get
um,
stuck throughout
let's
the
see here.
winter.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
James Haynes said he wouldn't want to live up there ever. He'll stay in the south where he belongs. Tawan Clark, I went through Donner Pass last winter. Beautiful, but the snowbanks were higher than the door window on the sides. Yes, I'm sure they were. And Jamie said she needs to get some sleep. Hey,
good
be
night,
safe,
Jamie.
Jamie. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm trying to think. When my husband goes snowmobiling out west, he goes through Beartooth Pass. Have you ever heard about that?
No.
Oh, I guess that one's always shut down. That'd be another good one. We don't have to just talk about passes, but some of the pictures I see it there, it's just the snowplow is the only way through.
See, when I grew up in Massachusetts and up in New England, there's a ton of snow, but not anything like. Well, no, I mean there was about as much snow as there is, in the upper Midwest, right? But obviously it's much colder in the upper Midwest. Um, but there's some inclines and there's some mountains. Mount Washington, I think, is kind of the biggest one in New England up there. But it's again the West, right? As soon as you go, west of whatever Nebraska and you know. North Dakota, actually, right down the center. That split, you start moving over. That's when you're going to start seeing the real stuff. That Pacific Northwest, that northwest part of the country. I mean, it's
Elevation.
that's rough driving out there.
Perfect. I did want to point out, so just a couple orders of business. Oh, we had another new Loves open. This one is in Cannon City, Colorado. So, boom. We're just talking about
Mountain
elevation,
country.
mountain country, Cannon City. Oh, and then did he, and then there's another new one in, oh, I hate when I don't know, is it looks like Cotulla, Texas. It's probably Cotulla. That
Yeah,
one's south of Austin, kind of, yeah, little, I'd say southern
I
Texas.
love Austin.
Yeah, never been.
Sharon says there's a great story on the Discovery Network about an expedition unknown with Josh Gates.
That's probably where I watched part of it. Timmy came home last night and he's like, "What are you watching?" Because it was just cannibalism. I'm like, don't worry, it's for work. He's probably
Yeah,
like, what did
cannibalism
you
for work. Yeah. Now, I
Perfect. But
did
yeah,
kind of want to mention too, Tawan Clark while he's on here. He called yesterday, and there was an issue that we took care of um, for him, but it kind of pointed something else out to me. Anyone on here, anyone in the company, right? We're here. We're a resource for you guys. Uh, Feel free at any time to reach out to us if there's an issue, right? Don't internalize it. Don't think that we don't care. Sometimes stuff gets lost in the shuffle, and just don't feel like we're not on your side, because we absolutely are. We want to make sure that your experience as a driver is the best that it could possibly be. We value you guys, and without you guys, there's no company, right? So we want to make sure that we lay all our cards on the table. If there's any kind of an issue, we're all here to help. And hopefully we took care of that issue yesterday. But for anyone else who's watching, it could be something as trivial as the TV stuff we talked about yesterday, right? I mean, anything that's going. Um, Anything that you need help with, big, small, whatever, we're here. We're a resource for that, right? That's kind of the point of us doing this too, is to, kind of spread some information and to make ourselves available and accessible, using this as a forum for you guys. So, I appreciate, um, I do appreciate the comment he made too, where, he said that he kind of watched us here. He felt like we were, you know, allies for him, and wanted to reach out to see if we could help, and we are here for that, absolutely.
yeah, no, I think that was kind of when we were talking about doing this podcast. We're like, that's just our goal. We want to open any areas where we might not be communicating, because as we all know, communication's tough sometimes. So if we seem like we're more approachable than others, like that's fine, because we want that's like Don said, we don't want anyone to internalize anything. We want to know if there is an issue. Sometimes it's hard to bring it to the table or say, hey, bring it to BJ, because okay, there you go. That's the head of the company right there. It's easier to talk to someone who's a friend, and that's what this basically is. I just call it our friendship chats in the morning, um, and we
Yep.
appreciate that. Communication, I think, has completely changed from this, and it's nice when people do reach out and we're able to bring it up to the team. We both have different meetings with operations each week, and if there is an issue, we bring it up, and
Yep.
they can. I think a lot of things have been solved, but we're always looking to improve.
Well, and,
That's what I
and,
say.
and going to the thing about reaching out too. I mean, our ownership and management, I mean, everyone's accessible, right? So don't feel, again, like it's too trivial, because these trivial things will add up. Eventually there's a bunch of little things that might turn into something bigger. We don't want you to internalize it. Again, your TV's not working. We have a great family of drivers here. There's resources. We had
Doug
um,
Linus posted the
post
numbers.
yesterday. Right, right on there. Helping his fellow drivers out. So yeah, we have a great family here. It's fantastic. Don't feel um, like it's a burden. Like you're burdening us with it. We want to know. It's no trouble at all. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. We're here to try to problem solve. And a lot of the issues you're having could be solved fairly easily, with the phone call, for sure. So another thing I wanted to mention too is Brian Dunn is back. So
That I
I'm
was gonna
happy
say, I
for that.
figured at some point we would make something work. I didn't think it would be less than 2 weeks, but we're happy to have him back on the team. Glad we shipped you the truck. Uh, which yeah, diecast. I have extras, so if you want one, some are being sent down to you, so you'll have a couple extra. Just let me know when you need me to replenish the stash. I'll get some more to Janesville. But Grand Forks, $80 for a diecast. Little SNS Cascadia. We aren't doing the two T680s right now. We'll see how the Cascadias go, but those are available. That's my
Cool,
plug.
cool. James Haynes actually left a very nice comment too. He said most definitely, since he's been here almost a year in October. He said he wouldn't want to work anywhere else. The company as a whole makes him feel like a person instead of a number. Um, that's because you are, right? I mean, you are a person. Like, we don't have numbers here. People are not numbers. We are people. We're all people trying to do a job, trying to work together. And again, if the trucks aren't moving, uh, we have nothing here. And beyond the trucks moving, we have a bond as people. We are all just people trying to, we have a common goal, right? We have a great group of people here. We don't always see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, we work through it. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, that's for sure.
Nope. I got fairly lucky showing up on the doorstep here.
Brian Dunn also said the detail on those die casts is amazing.
Yeah, we went back and forth. So when we were doing them, I just want to give a shout out to Custom Stripe. So when we initially did it, I got a quote from one of their guys there, and it was, $15-20 to letter the truck. And the trucks cost 60. So I was like, $80. Like, we're not going to profit anything. It's just going to be for everyone. And then when we went to get them lettered, the owner was like, oh no, it's going to be basically $15 more to letter it all. It was going to be, I think, 22 for the trailer, 14 for the truck, because they're so time consuming, because they're so small. And I'm like, well, I don't want to come back to you guys and say, hey, this isn't going to be feasible, because I think $100 is a lot for that. And luckily he worked with me. He understood. Luckily I had everything kind of as an email, and he honored that. So I want to thank them for at least getting our pre-orders done. They might go up in the future if we do more, but they kind of kept them at that same price. So I was happy. And they all come in little boxes. They had to unpack all of them from their boxes and pack them back up. And he said that was so time consuming. I was about to go up to Grand Forks and unpack them for him if it would have meant that we would have had to pay more. So thankfully I didn't have to go do that. But, I wanted to make sure we had the little SS stack sticker and the side box, which I wanted to do truck numbers, but he's like, they're so tiny, they won't show up. So figured we'd keep it looking good, but I don't know. I'm just a stickler for detail.
Ricky Hart said he wants a couple of them too when he gets to Grand Forks. Maybe that's something we can do too, right? Is that something where, if the guys buy them, is there a way that they can order their own decals to put their own truck numbers on them or something?
I don't know if they'll be able to print them that
that
small. They did do one truck where there's truck numbers, and they literally had to print it on paper and super glue it. It looked kind of not so good. So
yeah.
They tried, because I'm like, oh, they
James
printed. And I look closer. I'm like, Doug Linus. I thought
What's
Donner
that?
Pass was named. Doug said, I thought Donner Pass was named for Don Fort, or just take out the fort. That's exactly it.
Yeah, dad joke, right?
Love it.
Yeah, dad Linus. There's my dad joke. My dad joke.
Dad joke.
James Haynes, New Flyer did get the issues worked out with the Freon. That was just a 1-day deal. They had an emergency shutdown last Friday, so everything's squared away. If anyone's heading into New Flyer before 3 p.m., please take your loads directly to their facility there and try to get unloaded. They're trying to get as much as they can to kind of avoid some of that Monday morning chaos, right? So
perfect. Well, we are at 41 minutes today. A little longer, obviously, because of the story, but we'll try to do these periodically. I'm thinking about maybe moving them to the main page when we do a story, just so we can expand our audience. I'll have to work on my research skills. I felt like I was in college when I was taking notes. I was typing everything down, so I'm having a little bit of flashback there, but we can find some different stories, and if you guys have suggestions, let us know. We like your suggestions. We're not that creative.
yeah, and hopefully I get my technical issues worked out on my internet. I mean, I need a rip snorting fast internet. Is that what it was?
Rip snorting fast.
Yeah.
It's
brought
trademark.
to you by Vibrant Broadband.
We'll
Yeah.
see if they can get down there. Perfect. Well, everyone have a good weekend. Drive safe if you're driving. If you're at home, have a great time, and we'll see you guys Monday.
Be safe, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.